That's why I'll always have this like deep, intense, burning anger over how people treated Amber Heard, because in and of itself it was really shitty and she didn't deserve that. But also, them failing Amber Heard also failed pretty much every future survivor that is coming forward, because people are always going to say like, oh, it's just Amber Heard, we have a new punching bag, we have a new woman that we're allowed to hate because women are lying like scammers that are trying to bring down powerful men. It's genuinely so infuriating and makes me so just disappointed and disgusted with society, and just it's so indicative of how rampant misogyny is. Like, that's the understatement of the fucking century. It's just, it's evil. It's so evil, and it makes me sick thinking about how many women, even, one of the women that came out against Marilyn Manson, like, she retracted her statement or something of that sort because she didn't want to face any of the wrath that Amber Heard had to face. And that's so many other people's stories. That's why the RAINN Foundation, they had so many calls coming in when the trial was going on, because not because there were just so many men that could relate to what Johnny was lying about, but because so many women were triggered because their story was also, they were imperfect, they hit back, it's just, yeah, it's really disappointing. And I hope that Maya has an amazing support system, because it's going to be very nasty for the next, I don't even know how long, because One Direction fans have been experiencing mass psychosis for over a decade now. I just watched Woman of the Hour. It's directed by Anna Kendrick. She's also in the movie. And Lord, it was so, so, so good. So beautifully and carefully done in a way that, unlike what I'm used to seeing when it comes to serial killers and specifically perpetrators that target women and girls, I love the fact that they didn't lean too heavily into, oh, he was so charming and dreamy. And even if people from the outside looking in could like think that he was attractive, they didn't lean into that. Like, it was just like, okay, he has a way with words, but he's still disgusting and filthy and grungy and just a monster. I also love that they didn't feel the need to show us like all these essay scenes, like they got the point across with these really carefully chosen shots, and I think that that was enough without it being this overwhelming sort of thing. Like, it's so crazy. I feel like it really perfectly captured the anxiety of being around men and trying to sort of baby them and placate them so that they don't lose their temper, and just the anxiety of being a woman alone with a man, and the feeling of not being believed, and how the justice system over and over again fails women and girls, and how it took so many women. I think it was like up to like more than 10 women or something like that that had to come forward. And even then, he was let out and he was able to kill two more. And it's just, I think it was really, really beautifully done and so respectfully done in a way that, as a survivor, I felt really respected in the way that it was portrayed. And I don't know, I just appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into it. It was really, really well done. Really just amazing. I'm so impressed, and I would love to see more of her work as, just giving a woman's perspective on these things and directing and, choosing shots and a direction in the movie that are thoughtful and considerate of the fact that we don't need to see really like gross, overly sexualized, like, we don't need to see all that in order to get these points across. And I think it was done so tactfully, and I think that you guys should watch it. I have always hated how people act like male serial killers that usually target like women and girls are just so complex, or they're like these evil masterminds, when in reality it's just as simple as the justice system values their lives and their experiences more than us. Like, they are so much more likely to empathize with them and their sad, lonely childhoods and them not having friends at school and factoring those things in than they are like to care about us. It's very transparent and very obvious to me, but people like to act like it's just this like deep dark mystery as to how they were able to get away with their crimes for so long. And it's because people don't listen to women and girls. Like, how many times does a woman have to report being like stalked or harassed or anything for someone to do something? And usually when they try to do something, it's too late, or they do nothing at all. And then people are like, how did he get away with that? It's very simple. People do not value women and girls. Our lives do not matter to people on a large scale, which is why femicide is not something that people are talking about enough, because it is a worldwide thing, and nothing is done about it because, again, people do not value us. So I just don't like when people act like they're just so charming and they're just so dreamy and that's how they got away with it. No, they're usually not that intelligent. They get away with it because they know good and well that the world does not value us. They know good and well that there will be men and women that will defend them no matter what. And they know that the justice system is usually not going to do shit until their backs are against a wall, or they literally will not do anything at all. Like, they literally will not do anything at all. Like, it's very simple. Like, there's no way that someone should be able to have like 20 different victims and not get convicted until it's like 500, or they like finally hurt a man. Like, these things are very obvious to me, and it's very interesting to me that no one else sees it that way. Like, they're just like, oh my God, he was so dreamy. Like, no, he really wasn't. And he wasn't like this mastermind. And he wasn't like just, and it also has something to do with the way that women and girls are like socialized, because we're socialized to give the benefit of the doubt even when we shouldn't. And even when something is off, we're like not taught to trust our own intuition, even though we know these things. We know how it is. We know those moments when we realize we're unsafe with a man, but society tells us to ignore that voice and to not be stuck up and to give the benefit of the doubt, even at the risk of our own safety and all of that. So it's really not confusing to me how they are able to get away with what they do. Like, it's actually very, very obvious, and they're not that like complex or brilliant or any of those things. Like, maybe on a psychological level, like if you're a psychologist, that's really interesting, but other than that, it's really not that complex. Usually they're addicted to corn. Usually they do not see women as people. Like, that's the reality of it. Like, I don't think it's much deeper than that. And I hate that society acts like they just are these fucking masterminds, or like they're just so fascinating, when it's not that fascinating. They're just your regular fucking misogynist. Like, I think it's really sickening. Like, those men that you see, like, I don't think people get like how deep men's hatred for women goes. So it's always like, oh my God, like, I wonder what would have caused him to do that. He must have had like a really bad childhood. No, he just hates women. Or no, he must be gay or something like that. Like, no, they really do just hate us that much. Like, they are attracted. They want us to have their kids. They want to do all kinds of things with us or to us. But they still hate us. Like, they still very much hate us. And I don't think women will ever understand, because if women truly understood collectively how much they hate us, we would all be severely depressed and angry all the time. And men are very lucky that women don't know that. And obviously it's hard to see that when you're in such close proximity with someone that is oppressing you, and you have like romantic relationships with them, and the world is controlled by them. Of course, you're not going to see it quite as transparently as like Black people are able to do with white people. Like, you're not going to be able to see those things quite as clearly because there is no degree of separation. Like, you're always around men. But once you realize that, if all women collectively realized how much men hate us, the world, like, we would be doing very vile things. Like, we would not be acting the way we do. And they're very lucky that a lot of women don't really realize how much they truly hate us and how much they don't value us as human beings. But I just think we should stop trying to make it seem like they're just so complex, when they're literally just violent misogynists that don't value our lives. And also the justice system doesn't value our lives either, which is why they get away with these crimes. It's really just that simple. I thought I was going to show you guys like the full when I was done, but I'm done talking now. So love you. Bye. I really need women to understand that conversations about misandry are really just like a derailing tactic. It's not important. It's not real. It does not matter. Women saying mean things on the internet or being frustrated by being oppressed by men for hundreds and hundreds of years, that is not something that we need to focus on. When they start losing rights, when they start having their rights withheld, when they start having things overturned, that is when I will care. When there are policies limiting what they can do with their own bodies, that is when I will care. When there are hundreds and hundreds of them dying every day at the hands of women, that is when I will care. Until that happens, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. I don't give one single fuck. I don't care about women saying things that you don't like online. I wish that was my problem. I wish it was just men online saying things, but in reality, it's not that. It's honor killings. It's sexual assault. It's abuse. It's harassment. It's not being able to go outside at certain times. It's not being able to do certain things alone because men. It's so much deeper than getting your feelings hurt over internet stuff. Like, you guys whine over cyberbullying. And it's not even that. It'll be like, oh, I think men need to do better. And it's like, oh my God, the violent misandry. Like, you guys are supposed to be the logical sex. If you know that you have more social power than us, you should be using that to benefit everybody. But you don't. You only think about your fucking selves. But that derailing shit, that does not work on me. I don't care about you not being able to cry. I don't care about you getting your feelings hurt because you have been coddled your entire life. We really shield them from seeing how fucking horrible they are and how they make the existence of women and girls and womanhood in general so fucking unbearable because they are so fucking awful. They make it feel like a prison. They literally make womanhood feel like a prison. So I do not care. I do not care. Like, everything about womanhood is so often tied to what pleases them, what makes them happy, but don't be too much of this or don't be too much of that. So I don't really give a fuck if they get their feelings hurt because of things online. Why would I care about that? Until they're losing their lives at like really alarming rates from women, I don't care. I don't care. That has nothing to do with me. That has nothing to do with me. I want to focus on something that has actual systemic power, something that really hurts people, ends lives, ruins like so many, like ruins entire bloodlines, like limits entire futures. I don't care about something that disappears as soon as you log out. As soon as you log out, that shit is gone. It's gone. Is it bad that people feel less than because they're men? Sure. But I just don't see how that's more important than, or even, it's insulting to even compare the two. It's insulting because misogyny is so systemic. It goes so much deeper than hurt feelings. It goes so much deeper than anything that they talk about when it comes to misandry. So it's just frankly insulting and irritating that they think that we should also focus on that while we also have to worry about them ending our lives and having our entire lives derailed by being with the wrong man. You guys are disgusting. You guys are disgusting. And you are incapable of having any conversation that is not about you, that is not somehow back to you and how you're a victim. How are you a victim in a world that literally caters to you at every fucking turn and every fucking way? People are always like, what about the men? What about the men? Even though they are not the ones that need to be prioritized at every moment. The ones that are actually losing their lives, the ones that are actually unsafe in this world need to be prioritized above the ones that have all the rights and withhold all the rights. I just don't understand. It's a derailing tactic. Stop giving it attention. The fact that women get on live and debate with men about their rights or like trying to get them to see women as people is a humiliation ritual. I don't know why you spend your pretty little time doing that. Unless you're getting paid, then hey, more power to you. But to do that for free, to listen to their voice for free when it's not like medically, financially, or like absolutely socially necessary is a level of bravery that I never aspired to have. You would have to send me like $500 million for me to even entertain the thought of that, because I don't like hearing them speak. It pisses me off. It disturbs my chakra or something. Like, it's not something that I can stomach, I don't think. Because they'll say like the dumbest thing you've ever heard, but the way that they say it will make them feel like they ate and make other people feel like they did too. And it's like, it's irritating. You said something that a first grader could come up with, but you're so convinced that it made sense that you just feel like man of the hour, but you're not. You're just a fucking idiot that knows how to say things with conviction. So yeah, can't do that. The men that DM me asking if I want to debate them on live, it's never going to happen unless you have like a hefty check for me. Absolutely fucking not. Until you find out that all of them are okay with it to some degree. All of them. The leftist men, the men on the right, the feminine men, all of them. they're okay with it to some degree, whether it's in the media they consume, whether it's in the conversations with the boys, whether it's what they let pass in front of them and they don't get involved and they don't say anything. The way the men are outraged when they see women saying that they hate men after years and years and years of dealing with misogyny and being harmed by them, that's the reaction they should have when they see the millions and millions and millions of misogynistic shit online. That's what they should be responding to when every 2 hours there's something about a man killing a woman or a girl. But you don't see that because there are levels of misogyny that they are okay with. Y'all don't understand. Y'all don't understand. And we will never, ever truly understand how much they hate us. It goes so deep. And it's not just these random men hiding in the shadows. It's all of them. It's literally every single one. You cannot spend a substantial amount of time with any man ever without that mask slipping and the misogyny coming out or them being passive about it. They're either violent about it or they're passive about it. Both are misogynistic though. They all make excuses for the abusers, for the misogyny in music, for everything. They all will make excuses for at least one misogynistic man. So you know what that makes all of them? I'm gonna give you a second. Oh, okay. This is from 2011. I'm going to wager that it's probably a lot worse now. Men cognitively register women as objects that they can use or act on, like power tools, if they have looked at sexy pictures of women before. That's every man ever, by the way. Y'all think it's just like these big bad boogeymen hiding in the fucking woods or something. A lot of people would love to think that it's just this very small percentage of men and they're just all so fucking wonderful and they just love us so much. And all of these women that have stories, all of these millions and billions of women that all have a story. Everybody has a story, but somehow it's only 1%. That makes no fucking sense. You guys are supposed to be logical, but that doesn't make any fucking sense. Give you a little reality check. This is how it really is. This is how low it starts. More of you guys fit into the normalization category than you would like to admit. And then there's degradation, and then there's removal of autonomy, and then there's explicit violence. So all of you collectively fit somewhere in here, whether you want to admit it or not. This is my favorite graphic ever because it's so perfect. You guys think that this is how the world looks, but every single woman would not have a story, would not have a really shitty, abusive, manipulative, disgusting experience with you guys if it really was the reality. There are very, very, very few good men. And even then, how do we define that? The bar is very, very low. I don't think there are good men. I think there are decent men. I think there are men that are good at having a mask up. But all of you are complicit in misogyny to some extent, whether it's the music that you listen to, whether it's the behavior that you allow from other men, whether it's the men that you meet ride because you think that you will be them one day. All of you guys fit more into this, more like the red zone than the good men zone. And I, again, do not believe the good men exist. Goodbye. Many people need to hear this. Ariana Grande's body is not public property. She is a public figure, but she is not a public fucking object for everybody to comment on. She is not public property for people to give their critiques and say, oh, your body should look like this, or you looked better when you were this. Like, women's bodies are not public property. Like, I thought we all knew it was not okay to comment on people's bodies, but for some reason you think it's free reign when someone is like on platforms, but it's not. It's literally not. Like, it's disgusting and it's weird, and your fake concern doesn't make it less weird. She told you guys multiple times. She even put it in a fucking song. Don't comment on my body, do not reply. I would have said a lot worse because she is like a graceful human being. I would have said, fuck y'all, stop commenting on my body, worry about yourself, and get a fucking job. That's what I would have said. But she is so graceful and she is so kind to people that don't respect her boundaries. And I don't understand, because it'll be people that have like usernames like Grande Lover 616 or something like that. And they'll be like, oh my God, she looks so sick and whatever. And it's like, her body is not a fucking object. You don't own it. You don't get to comment on that. If the people in her life are not concerned, or if the people in her life are not able to change anything for her, if there is something wrong, then what the fuck makes you think that some loser on the fucking internet that clearly doesn't have a life because they have this much time to comment on someone else's body is going to be able to change that for her? She has many people that love her and care about her. She has access to doctors and whatever help that she needs and wants. If that is not happening, that is her business. Sorry, it's her fucking business. Just not your place to comment when women get too much filler, or they get too much of this, or they do this to adhere to beauty standards or whatever. You don't get to comment on that. You don't. Every woman is doing her best in a world that values her appearance more than anything else. So stop the weird ass conversations, the fake ass concern. You are not concerned about her. You are uncomfortable because she is existing in a body that you don't think is desirable. Let's be fucking for real. And even if you are concerned, even if it is coming from a place of sincerity, she has already expressed that it makes her uncomfortable. So why not respect that boundary? Why not understand and get through your thick fucking skulls that that woman has gone through so fucking much? And the fact that she even lives a public life still is fucking amazing to me. And I admire her deeply. Like, say whatever you want about her. You can believe whatever Page Six told you to. But she's very graceful, because I would have told y'all some really nasty things by now, because you guys crossed the line so many times, and you push and you push and you push. And then if something happened to her, everybody would be like, oh my God, like, we failed her. No. Mind your fucking business. Mind your fucking business. Leave that lady alone. You don't have to like her, but leave her alone. And stop commenting on women's bodies unnecessarily. Unless you're going to say something nice about her personality, or you look beautiful or whatever, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. She didn't tell y'all that, but I'm gonna tell y'all that. Shut the fuck up. People that don't vote, they always have to make it clear, like, oh, I don't give a fuck about any of this and blah, blah, blah. And it'll be people that directly get affected by when shit gets voted for in the wrong way. Like, you can't afford to not care, especially when you're a part of a marginalized group. You're not fucking Rosa Parks. You're not a fucking civil rights leader. Stop acting like you're doing something special by not using your right to vote. You're not fucking Malcolm X. You're not Martin Luther King Jr. You're not any of those people. You're just someone with a Twitter and Facebook account. Relax. If you're a woman and you're not voting, women literally died so that your ass could vote, so that you could even sit on a phone and be on a public platform and give your little dumbass opinions. Fucking vote. Even if you don't want to vote for the president, vote on your props, vote on the things that are local and of interest to you. And just do something. Like, you guys can't do anything these days. Like, feminists were literally going on hunger strikes and, like, actually dying for shit. And you guys can't even fill out a fucking ballot because you're getting on a fucking high horse and making yourself feel like you're a fucking civil rights leader because you're not voting. You're not doing something special. Your inaction is not special. Anyways, just get out and vote.
It was gay. Why should I have to apologize? I saw...
The video is really old, and I don't know how it's on my For You page, but I hope that you didn't have a heartbeat for much longer after this video.
My favorite genre video is man gets on the internet and confirms all of our worst fears as women, and confirms that everything we think about them is true, and confirms that everything that they think about us is a projection. Let's break it down. And I mean, they really get on the internet and tell on themselves every single day. They put out some dumbass video like this where it's supposed to be like cute, funny, endearing, educational even, or whatever. And all they end up doing is confirming that women should be exactly as afraid of men as they are. This is actually crazy, because men have spent so much time and so many years talking about how women are gold diggers, they're resource motivated, they put men in categories, they just go for the top 5% of men. And, it's so messed up, and how are men supposed to respect women when women act like this? And then this man goes and posts a video very seriously talking about the categories that men put women in, and explaining all the categories like most girls don't know this. First of all, we absolutely do. First of all, women absolutely know this. This is why, as women have come into their own education, their own resources, being able to live independently, this is why they're staying the fuck away from y'all, because this is what we are to you. And yes, you guys can see the video. Let's watch it together.
Either a bitch, a shorty, a baddie, or a wifey. And you can't be a bitch and a wifey. And you can't be a shorty and a baddie. You know what I'm saying?
What's a shorty?
You could be a baddie and a wifey.
What's a shorty?
A shorty is a girl who isn't a bitch, but she cool. You know what I'm saying? So a baddie is like a girl who's, really pretty, but she ain't wifey material. And then a bitch, well, you know what a bitch is. Any girl can be a bitch, but not every girl is a bitch.
Are you finna amend it too?
No, I'm not doing a man one. Okay? Now, baby, you are a wifey. Because first day, you let me use your car.
I'm so dead. I did not let you use my car. We went and got food together.
But you let me drive.
So unsurprisingly, he actually does a really piss poor job of even explaining what these things mean. So I am going to have to go in after him now and explain to you what he actually means by these terms, okay? So when he's saying stuff like you can't be a bitch and a wifey, the reason for that is because bitch actually means any woman that does not like these men, that these men also don't want to impress. This is a woman that's not living for the male gaze. This is always what the word bitch means. It's a woman who is not living for the male gaze or for this particular man's gaze. She's not trying to impress him, and she's got nothing that he wants. Men do not see these women as human beings. So if you are just out here living your life and you have nothing that a man wants, right, which is cooking and cleaning skills that you're willing to give out freely, you're not willing to go 50-50 on bills, not interested in impressing men, or particularly this man, then you are just a bitch. This could be because this man is not like physically attracted to you. It could be because he is physically attracted to you, but he realizes you're not going to do stuff for him. This can also be women that just don't participate in like male gazy things to begin with. Like these are women that don't go out of their way to meet the beauty standard. This is oftentimes a bitch as well. These are also women that have more power than these men, right? And are not willing to give it up for a man. They're not willing to make themselves smaller for a man. That's a bitch, okay? A shorty is a pick-me, which men also don't want. So bitch and shorty, they're underneath this line, and this man does not say this explicitly, but that's because they're in the category of women that men don't want. So a shorty is like nice enough. She is a pick-me. She is living for the male gaze. She realizes that men don't have empathy towards her inherently, and so she's gonna have to earn it. And so she becomes a pick-me, right? That's a shorty. Like she's one of the guys, but when another woman is around, she's also used to triangulate, or she's kind of seen as like a throwaway, like you can sort of throw her overboard if things end up going wrong, right? It's just like extra weight on a boat. At the moment you found like your wifey or whatever, like you don't need the shorty anymore unless you needed to bring her in to triangulate a situation. But shorty and bitch are the women that men don't want. Then we get up into the category of women that men do want. And this is where we meet the baddie. The reason that baddie and wifey are up here in this category together is because they are both considered to be desirable by men. So this is the category that's not desirable by men. And he says any woman can be a bitch, and that's very true. But he says not all women are. But any woman can be a bitch. You can absolutely drop from the wifey, baddie, shorty category down to the bitch category, depending on, again, how you interact with the men that are deciding this system. I mean, we've all seen those like text message exchanges where the guy's like super into the woman at first. He's like you're so beautiful, you're so pretty, please let me talk to you, let me get your number, let me date you, whatever. And she's like, no. And he's like, oh, you're just a stupid, ugly bitch. Because all of this is really just the male gaze. It's kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's the same kind of dilemma, right? Men do not want a woman who's not at all concerned with impressing them or fitting into the male gaze. But they also don't want a woman who is like really obsessed with fitting into the male gaze, because it's not enough of a challenge, like it's not going to impress their boys. They don't want either of these women. And the deal with the baddie is that a baddie is a woman who knows her worth, but is also catering to the male gaze, but in a different way than the shorty, right? The baddie is catering to the male gaze as in she's expensive, she's unattainable, she is high maintenance, right? And this is men's favorite type of woman, right? They don't care for the shorties, the bitches, even the wifeys. They care about the baddie. That's who they want to impress. That's who they want to have on their arm. That's who they want all their friends to be thinking about them, you know, going to bed with at night. This is what men really, 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 really want. That's why a shorty can't be a baddie, because it's not just about wanting the male gaze and the male approval. It's also about knowing your worth. The shorty makes it too easy and the bitch makes it too hard. The wife and the baddie are just right. They're just right. The problem is, in order to get with a baddie, you usually need resources. Most baddies are not out there trying to give it all up for free, because they have a lot of takers. They have a lot of options. And so in order to be the most attractive option, you have to have money. You have to have a car. You have to have a place of your own. You have to have a good career, a good job, right? Well, who's going to help you get those things? It's the wifey, right? It's not the shorty. The shorty just loves you as you are, right? The bitch, she doesn't like you at all. She couldn't care less about you. The shorty wants to love you as you are, which as the man, you know is a worthless, pathetic pursuit for her, because you're not shit. You need a wifey to help you get the baddie. And I hope you guys heard that. I hope you guys caught that, because he said to his wife, you were wifey material. You let me take your car. You let me drive your car on the first date. He wouldn't look like a loser getting out of a car that a woman drove. This is the same guy that's going to want to use your card to pay for dinner. He's going to want you to slide it to him under the table or give it to him beforehand so that he can look like he's the one that's paying for it, but he's using your money. He looks like he's the one that's driving you to the date, but he's driving you in your car. It looks like he has a house, apartment, whatever, but he only has that because you pay half the bills or because it was yours when he got there, because he moved in with you. But all of those things are going to make him attractive to a baddie. Being able to save 50% of his income, splitting bills with a wifey type, being able to get ahead in his career, because again, the wifey type is usually an earnest, hardworking, good woman who's just simply not calculated like a baddie is. She's also not quite as useless as a shorty, right? Again, a shorty is never going to push you to be your maximum, like, potential, like, whatever, right? That's only going to be your wifey or a baddie. And the baddie is not going to stick around while you get yourself together, but a wifey will. That's the difference. That's the difference between a wifey and a baddie, and why they're both desirable in their own respects to men. But just know, ladies, if a man ever calls you the wifey type, he's planning, plotting, and scheming on you. He wants to step into your shoes, and he wants to live your life, and he wants you to become the loser that he is, so that he can take all of your good energy, all of the things you're going to do for him. He can take 50% of your income and build himself up so he can go find himself a baddie. That's it. That's all there is to it. Men get on the internet and tell on themselves every day. You just have to listen. And trust me, you'd rather be a bitch than be a wifey. Must have been terrible hearing that, like, oh, you're a wifey type because you let me drive your car. Because you were aware that I'm not the man that maybe I possibly could be, right? You're aware that I'm not reaching my potential, but you see that potential, and I like that. Because you're going to help me, right? You're going to help me unearth that potential and then make myself valuable to a baddie. This is why men divorce their starter wife, because she was wifey material. Yeah, maybe she wasn't a bitch or a pygmy. She was wifey material, and she helped him get to the level of a man where he could bag a baddie. Because that is what men really, really, really want. They want the woman that's unattainable to them and to all of their loser friends, but they know they can't get her on their own. So they need a wifey. That's why you can't be a wifey and a bitch at the same time. Because you have to think somewhere in your heart of hearts that this man is worth shit, that this man has potential. And that's why you can't be a shorty and a baddie at the same time, because one of these women knows their value and the other doesn't. She's just out there giving it up for free. Baddie knows that she has that all the time. It's not special to her. What's special to her is resources, status, all of those things, which men really overlap with baddies on, because that's what's important to them. Again, this is actually the most desirable category for men, which I'm not saying that's what you need to be, because again, men's opinions ain't shit. But a baddie has figured out how to carry herself in a way where she is calculated. And she's actually able to extract value out of men. The wifey is the opposite in the sense that she helps to bring value that men extract from her. And then once again, they take it to the baddie. And you may be thinking like, no, this is not true. Men hate transactional women. No, they really like having transactional relationships with women, but only ones where they have the leg up. They only want the wifey as long as they can hold love over her head. And then as soon as they're ready to level up and graduate to a baddie and tell her, okay, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to do this, 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 and this for you, but I'm going to hold it over your head. Both of which are transactional relationships. So don't be fooled, ladies. Men are all about the transactional relationships. All about it. They just don't want you to catch on to that and to start treating them accordingly. And baddies are the only ones that have figured that out. All right, I hope this helps. Stay safe out there, ladies. I'd rather be a bitch than a wifey any day. Godspeed, y'all.
A lot of men in this generation talk about wanting a woman who brings something to the table. But when they find a woman who is actually independent, they feel like, oh, she's masculine. She don't need me for anything. But the minute that woman tries to depend on him, either he don't got it or he can't match the type of lifestyle that she's used to. So they get mad at you for being independent and having things together to the point where they can't keep up with you. But they will also get mad at you if you depend on them and you don't have the same amount of money as them. They start to look at you like, oh, well, what you bring to the table? I can't date no woman who ain't got an income and who can't go 50-50 with me. Make up your mind, sir. And I'm starting to realize that this issue is not a woman issue.
It's because they suffer so badly from male main character syndrome. Please go watch her video. She says it all, even the part that I'm about to expound on. She says that it's an issue of ego, and I just want to break that down a little bit further, because what's really at the heart of that ego is this main character syndrome that they have been fed since the moment that they tried to sort of wrap their mind around how the world works. And everything that they've seen since has existed to confirm this main character syndrome. And the reason that they can't get on board with an independent woman or a woman that they have to provide for is because neither of those things makes them feel like the main character in that whole narrative. A woman who can provide for herself and doesn't need them, makes them feel like a supporting cast. That makes them feel like they're not the main character, so they don't like that. In the other case, a woman who is like, no, that's okay, you can provide for me, like, I'm here to receive, I'm in my feminine, whatever that means, go ahead and get in your masculine. They start to realize that true masculinity requires them to set themselves aside and not be the main character in that situation. They get burned out on that and they're like, I can't afford this, I'm working too hard, I'm doing this, this, and this. It decenters them in their own life. They also can't use that dependence of women as a threat anymore because women can go out and get their own job now. It makes them even less the main character because they don't hold power over that woman like that. They realize that she's only with them because they provide something, which means they're not the main character. Also, why they feel so comfortable posting diabolical shit like this. Because truly what they want is to be the main character. A woman says she's going to be independent and outside all summer. Not on my watch. I don't think so. You're going to be tied to me with a child. Your life has to revolve around me and my child. That's why they feel so comfortable doing and saying shit like that. That's why they feel so comfortable saying they want a submissive woman. Because the words submissive woman give them this idea they have control over her life and she has to submit. That's why. That's why a lot of husbands will threaten women and say, well, I bring in the money, and even though I told you to quit your job, like now I'm going to hold that over you. And when their wife goes out and tries to get a job, they're also unhappy because that means she opened a door for herself and it means that she can become independent of them, and that makes her the main character and not them. All of men's behavior is always circling this very drain. This is why the ideal relationship for them is one that's vague and undefined, one where they feel like they hold all the cards. That's why the ideal relationship for them is something like 50-50, leaning on the situationship side. It's basically a situation where they can control and gaslight a woman and continually decenter her and center themselves in that relationship to the point where they've completely like sucked all the life and joy and ambition out of her, and now they're bored because again, a main character always has something to contend against. And that's how a lot of men view the women in their life, is like not as a partner, not with any type of unconditional love. The love is very conditional and it's a very much a contentious kind of situation. They're always trying to keep an upper hand on you as the woman. I recently watched Poor Things and Mark Ruffalo's character tells her in the beginning, like, don't fall in love with me. I can't offer you consistency. I don't know about this. And she's like, okay. 15 minutes later, he's like, marry me. Like, it's because he wants to center himself in her life somehow. It doesn't matter how. He doesn't really have any values. Like his only value is I need to center myself at somebody else's expense. It's kind of intriguing to him that she keeps like decentering him. And he's like, no, but this is a battle that I have to win. Like I have to decenter you once and for all. I have to trap you somehow. Either by telling you, you know, don't fall in love with me, but I'm still going to want to spend time with you. I'm still going to want to center myself in your life. Even though I'm telling you not to fall in love with me, I'm centering myself as somebody you should fall in love with. Or if you're not interested in that, then I want to center myself in your life by marrying you and offering you this like romantic love type thing that really was just made up in order for men to more effectively trap women and become the main character in their own life and in that woman's life and in her family's life and in her children's life and in her co-worker's life, all of those things. Like they really just want to center themselves and they won't rest until they accomplish that goal. So as a woman, you need to always center yourself unapologetically. You need to match men's energy because it's really the only way that they understand power dynamics. The more you keep conceding, the more they're going to keep clamping down. So you just like stop fighting and stop breathing, and then they'll be like, I'm done. And they'll move on and they'll do it to somebody else. So yeah, stay away from them. And if you're not going to stay away from them, then make damn sure you know how to center yourself. I love you so much. Good luck and Godspeed. There's no way he thought this was okay. There's absolutely no way. It's always men are visual until the finish line is literally right in front of his fucking face and everybody else is standing on the other side of it. On the other side, sir. Read the fucking room. I know for a fact he's never seen anybody do this before, and especially not to a man. Men never let their fatherhood steal the spotlight from them and their accomplishments. A woman is the only person that you would think to do this kind of shit to, which makes it all the more frustrating. Very like Harrison Butker coded, right? Like this guy probably thought he was some kind of a hero by letting this woman's kids run up on her right before the finish line so that she would be forced to choose between the accomplishment of running a marathon and the accomplishment of motherhood. He was definitely trying to make a point there. Trust me. Please fuck off with any comments defending this guy. Literally everybody in the whole world knows how a finish line works. It's literally in so many movies, in so many cartoons. Everybody knows which side of the finish line you are supposed to stand on if you want to congratulate the person who is running the race or the marathon. Nobody is supposed to stop anywhere and do anything right before the finish line. And you are never supposed to do anything but cheer the person on if you are not on the other side of that finish line. You are certainly not supposed to send children out there to try and hug their mom before she even gets a chance to cross the finish line. That is not how marathon works, and everybody knows that. So do not leave any fuck-ass comments in my... I'm sure he meant well. No, he didn't. He meant maliciously. There was one other person standing on the other side of that finish line, and that person was minding their own business and had their child on their shoulders. Was not sending that child out to run up on their parent. And it especially points to the fact that he did it on purpose, because you can see that there's a motorized vehicle behind the two runners, and he still sent his children out there to give their mommy a hug. Like, no, fuck off with that. Absolutely unbelievable behavior. That you would send your children out there to get run over by another runner, by, again, the motorized vehicle that was driving behind your wife and the other runner. There's absolutely no way that he wasn't doing this to bring attention on himself. He wanted to be super dad, he wanted a hero, he wanted everyone to know how much he supports his wife, because even her accomplishments are supposed to be about him. He's supposed to be the main character the whole time. But he brought the kids to the marathon. Like, who cares if she crosses the finish line? Isn't he a good dad, you guys? Isn't he a good dad for bringing the kids? Once you really understand men's need, like absolute, it's like a physical need to be centered in their own life and in the lives of others, all of this behavior makes perfect sense. A lot of people are confused, but his behavior makes perfect sense, actually, if you think about it. He wanted there to be a headline like, woman's thoughtful husband brings her children to witness her crossing the finish line, but the woman doesn't care. She stops and she hugs her children and she kisses her husband and she forfeits her marathon and she forfeits first place. None of that matters to her except for being a wife and mother. And he wanted to be the center of that headline. Meanwhile, we all know we would never see a woman pull some shit like this without being called everything but a child of God, as Cecilia Regina would say. A woman could never pull this off. And I'm glad that the comment section was ripping this man a new asshole, because in the past, this would have been like very much swept under the rug and seen as like just regular incompetence instead of weaponized incompetence. It would have been seen as, well, at least he's trying, at least he's babysitting his own children, mind you, at least he showed up, like at least he's being supportive. No, he's actually being the very opposite of supportive. And I'm so glad that we as women see this kind of behavior now and just call bullshit on it. They are literally fighting you for the spotlight. Whenever they perceive you to be the main character instead of themselves, they're going to fight you on it. Just be ready, and most importantly, be ready to leave, because you are the main character in your life and nobody should be fighting to take that spotlight from you. Like, the extent to which he was determined to be the main character really shows in how unthoughtful that action is to both the wife and the children. The classic double bind. He knows that her stopping before the finish line to hug her kids would automatically disqualify her. They record the time of your marathon. They decide who finishes first, second, third, and last based on when you cross that finish line. He thought, oh, she would probably love to not cross the finish line and hug her kids instead. Even though not only does she probably hug her kids every day anyway, and there's no need to steal her spotlight in order to have her hug the kids. It's still been very cool and very sweet if it happened on the other side of that finish line. The other side of that bind for the woman is if she bypasses her kids, like if she runs around them, she's a bad mom. He knows this. Before doing this, he knew that. Getting a chance to jump down a woman's throat is like one of our favorite things to do as a society. Like, we love to pile on a woman just for not being good enough and for choosing the wrong side of the double bind. She stops and hugs them, then, oh, see, you know, all moms care about is their kids, and gosh, why did you spend all that time training just to like not cross the finish line? Like, what, don't you have any respect for yourself? If she runs around them and she doesn't stop to hug them, then it's, oh my gosh, what a terrible mom. Like, the kids don't know any better. Like, she should have stopped and hugged them or at least said something. Like, no, it's a double bind. No matter what she does, she's going to be wrong. And he knows that. Also, it was very unthoughtful to the kids. The double bind for them is either A, your mom stops and hugs you, and then she forfeits a title that she worked really hard for. And this could possibly cause her to have a lot of complicated feelings, as well as the kids when they get older and they realize, like, they're too young to realize what's going on. So, of course, they're not thinking that anything about this is selfish or anything about this is, like, somehow taking away from their mom because they're too young to understand. But once they're old enough, like, they may feel some type of way about that. And also for the kids, like, if their mom doesn't stop and hug them, like, that sucks, because they don't know why they were sent out there being told to hug their mom just for her to have to run past them in order to accomplish the thing that she worked really hard for. But I'm sure those kids have some feelings about that. Like, that sucks. You know, they thought that, you know, it's time to hug mom. That's what their dad told them. He put his wife in a double bind and he put his kids in a double bind. The only person that he didn't think he had put in a double bind was himself. And if he really actually loved his wife or his kids, he wouldn't do any of this. He would have just went on the other side of the tape along with everybody else, waited for her time to be taken. He would have waited for her to be congratulated. He would have explained to the kids exactly how everything is going to work. Like, we can't hug mommy until she crosses the tape, until she crosses the finish line. Because mommy trained for this and it's very important to her. And we came here to cheer her on, not to take the attention away from her. He would have told his kids that. Instead, he's trying to teach his kids that they are the only thing that's even allowed to be important in their mom's life. That's the double bind that women are always put into. If you're performing on a stage, people that came to support you in the audience would never run up on the stage as you're taking your final bow or as you're performing the final scene in the play. They would cheer from the audience. You're not just useless, you're also malicious. Not only was he standing there at the finish line without any flowers, without any water, without a snack, without any sort of like thoughtful gesture that he could have done, he actually went out of his way to try and take her special moment too. And I'll tag the video that I'm adding on to below, but she really said it perfectly, that some women are just married to their biggest #1 hater. This is a perfect real life example of that. That man was so bitter. He was so put off. He was so upset that the limelight wasn't on him that he actually literally went out of his way to be as inconsiderate as possible and to try and actually take this woman's accomplishment right out of her hands at the very last second, using her own children as pawns in his sick little game. Side note, I know y'all saw man #2. That's what we're looking for. He let her have her moment, he let her regain her composure, and he went in for the hug at a very clearly welcomed time by her. She was into it. He knew the etiquette, which her husband should have most certainly bothered to learn before he showed up to support her. If he was really there to support her, that's what he would have done. So that speaks to his intentions. And I know y'all saw the way that he caught her hat when it slipped. Yeah, her husband would never do something so sexy. You can just tell. But yeah, random runner man, 2 points. Husband, 0 points. It is literally so much better to be alone than to deal with this kind of shit. This is why we say men ain't shit. And not only are they not shit, they also can't stand it when anybody else is doing better than them. They're crabs in a bucket too. They try to pull you down anytime you achieve or accomplish anything. Stay away from them. I love you so much. Godspeed.
Anna Kendrick recently went on a podcast and revealed that she is doing something fucking incredible, and more people need to be talking about it and paying attention to this because it's honestly astounding. She is on this promo tour for her new movie, Woman of the Hour, which she stars in, but she also directed. It's her directorial debut. And this is a movie about a real-life serial killer, Rodney Alcala, who murdered and terrorized many women in the 1970s and actually weirdly appeared on a televised dating show before he was caught. But she talked about the process of making this movie, and specifically the process of when it came time to sell this movie and make money from it. When she realized that money was going to be made off of this movie, that it made her feel gross. It didn't make her feel good because of the exploitative nature of true crime. And so she decided to donate her entire profit for this movie to RAINN and the National Center for Victims of Violent Crime. And I was already incredibly impressed with this film. Like, setting aside the fact that this is a directorial debut and yet it has a very distinct and clear creative direction and very interesting creative and artistic choices, it's also just got this entire ethos behind it that is so unusual for films that are like mystery thrillers, especially based on true crime. What struck me about this film immediately was that it wasn't like sensationalizing this. It wasn't turning this into a spectacle like a lot of true crime does. It wasn't focusing on like the disturbing realities and inner workings of this fucking lunatic's mind. It was focusing on the women who were his victims. It was humanizing them first and foremost and illustrating just the injustice of when stuff like this happens, because I feel like it is so fucking easy in true crime to get hung up on all the juicy details and all of the disturbing factoids that like make things seem interesting and weird and we get obsessed with. And remember that this is it. At the end of the day, these were women whose lives were fucking stolen from them because of some fucking selfish douchebag. And that's the thing, absolutely everything about the way Anna Kendrick approached telling this story, the way she continues to talk about it, the way she continues to advocate for these causes, is really beautiful. And it's really reminiscent to me of just the fact that women really deserve to get to tell our own stories. That's not to say like exclusively. There are plenty of men who have told, written, directed wonderful stories about women. Obviously, there are plenty of men who are beyond capable of it. But I just think that like this is really indicative of the fundamental differences to the way that women see these things and approach these things. It's really reminding me of that viral clip that's going around recently about Saoirse Ronan and Paul Mescal talking about, like, Paul Mescal laughing about how he wouldn't even think about self-defense in a situation, and Saoirse Ronan saying, yeah, women do all the time. And I feel like that kind of ethos is just embedded into every single frame of this movie. And it's just so beautiful and refreshing to see a story like this based on real people, that no matter how much or little screen time these women have in this story, it's their fucking story. It's the injustices that were done to them. It's the horrifying reality of what was taken from them. And I'm endlessly impressed. I really cannot wait to follow Anna Kendrick's directing career, and I'm just so wildly impressed by everything that she has done on this press tour. I saw Your Monster last night, Melissa Barrera's new movie, and I've been waiting to see this movie for ages because I knew that it was going to be my shit, and still I was blown away by how much I loved it. This is like the most romantic and eclectic and weird and spooky, but also like a little bit disturbing, kind of, a little bit violent, but also just charming movie I've seen in a while. It's so weird and wonderful. Everyone who didn't see Lisa Frankenstein and then became obsessed with it on TikTok like 6 months later, you're gonna kick yourself if you don't go see Your Monster. It is so amazing. And I love movies like this because they feel so special. This is lightning in a bottle. This is not something you get every day. And I absolutely adored it. This movie is writer-director Caroline Lindy's feature directorial debut, and it is so impressive. Like, genuinely, this is a movie about a musical being made, and the art production is so beautiful. There's so much of that, like, whimsy and fun of a musical without there being an overbearing amount of songs, so if you don't like musicals, you don't have to worry about it. But it has, like, beautiful horror staples like Suspiria that, like, incorporate this beautiful, vibrant color scheme and also just astoundingly beautiful visuals that incorporate so well into the story. It's a story about friendship. It's a story about self-love. It's a story about love. And Tommy Dewey, who plays the monster, is so fucking charming. Like, for all of the little girls who were sad when Prince Adam turned into Prince Adam from the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, this is a movie for you. This is a contemporary love story where the Beast gets to be sexy as the Beast. So I'm just saying, this movie's wonderful. Everyone should see it. I absolutely loved it. Recommend. 10 out of 10.
Family, when I bring up Phil consistently and without shame hitting on every single woman in sight who is not his wife, people like to bring up 1-2 times tops that they have seen Claire hit on people without shame, okay? One is when Phil has stones, the stones that go through his what's it called? Stones. Phil has the stones, and he like is saying he's giving birth and that he's dying and that he's suffering, and Claire goes, I will call the fire department. And it's like the joke in the series that the fire department, but only in this specific episode, fire department firefighters are sexy. We do see it again later when Alex dates a firefighter, which someone reminded me to talk about him because I was having a huge conversation about him the other day with my friend. Hi Shy. And like I haven't actually brought him up in any of these. But here's the thing. So people bring up, as this commenter did, the time that Phil is suffering with his gallstones? Stones. Bloodstones? Urine stones? I don't know. It doesn't matter. He has the stones, okay? And they're going through him and they hurt and he's suffering. Claire has to take him to the hospital. It's easier to get the firefighters to come. And Phil's like, no, I don't need the firefighters, because he knows that everyone thinks that the firefighters are hot. He's super jealous of that. So Claire does dress up a tiny bit and make herself look nice so that the firefighters can see her. And Phil shames her for it consistently. Phil makes her feel like the worst human being who has ever existed. Phil brings up the fact that he could die in this surgery and that he's suffering and that she dressed up so hard when he was suffering and he's just living like his life and he could die in this surgery. So does she really want the last thing that she ever said to him to be a lie? So she tells him, I did dress up for the firefighters, because she was trying to be like, no, I didn't dress up for the firefighters. And then, and here's the part that people love to forget. Here's the thing that people love to forget. If a single person comments that I don't need coffee, because I already have a lot of energy, I will shame you publicly, just so you know. Because this is just my natural personality, but thanks. Anyways, the thing that people love to forget about this show, and specifically this episode in this show, oh, this is a new one, I have to open the thing first, is that then at the end of the episode, it turns out that while Phil has been shaming Claire, and he's planning on using this against Claire for years and years and years to come, he tells the documentary crew his plan to use this in their 60s so that he can buy a trip to space by shaming her for this moment in time where she tried to dress up to make the young men think that she looks kind of nice. Phil is in the hospital for 24 hours. He has surgery. And the number one thing that he does while he's having the surgery, while he's actively supposed to be trying to get better, is talk to a family of the most attractive Playboy bunny style woman you can possibly imagine. Okay? If there were 3 Pamela Andersons in a room, these women would be her, okay? Their boobs are fully out, they're wearing crop tops, they're wearing tight clothes, their hair is done Texas style, their makeup is perfect. And Phil has been actively hitting on them, doing magic tricks on them, talking to them, asking for hugs continuously so that he can really hug these the entire time. Claire tried to look nice because the firemen were coming. She was not going to really talk to the firemen. She was not really going to do anything to the firemen. She wasn't going to actively try to hug the firemen. Claire wanted to look like maybe she's a living, breathing human woman who has makeup and looks good and like tries to look good in public. Because the cute firemen were coming to the house and she wanted to look nice. Phil, in every episode of Modern Family, from the first episode to the last episode, lies to Claire about the woman he hits on. And when he's not lying to Claire about the woman he hits on, Phil is doing another very interesting thing, which is making Claire feel really bad for no longer looking as perfect as she did when she was 21 and just started dating him. Because if there's one thing that Phil's gonna do, it's bring up the fact that Claire doesn't look like Claire used to when Claire was 20, didn't age as well as most other women. And what does Phil continuously do instead? He hits on Gloria. Gloria will say, "Phil, oh, hi, Phil," and he will take that, her saying Phil in her accent, and use it as an excuse to feel her new dress. In the first episode of the show, in the second episode of the show, what does he do? His entire plot line is A, being a bad dad who doesn't know how to teach life lessons, and B, lying to his wife because he hit on the hot neighbor who Claire actively said stay away from her, she sleeps with other people's husbands, and he helps that woman break into her own house, hits on her, lies to Claire about it, and continuously hugs, like when she comes over, and when this hot, super hot woman comes over to bring Phil the bike with the life lesson that Phil failed at teaching, Phil hugs Claire so hard that he's physically hurting her because he doesn't want her to see the situation at hand, even though he knows that she's already seeing it. Phil takes any opportunity that he can, such as in the episode where Luke is, where Phil had received the stupid photo of the woman with her top off on a lawnmower, and Claire is like, oh my god, Luke is looking at POR stuff. This is terrible, he's just a boy, we have to like teach him differently, like he can't know this stuff yet. Phil lies to his wife about it, lies to his son about it, shames, like the entire situation makes it very weird, very awkward, and the entire time Claire doesn't even care that Phil's the one that's looking at this stuff. It's that Luke, the 12-year-old, could potentially be looking at, actually I don't think he's 12 at this point, could be potentially looking at this stuff, which is a completely different situation. And it keeps going, but people want to bring up the time that Claire tried to look nice for a fireman when they were coming to her house, or bring up the time that Claire is going to yoga with Gloria, And the yoga teacher, for once, is hitting on Claire instead of hitting on Gloria. And we first know that that yoga teacher was hitting on Gloria, and that Gloria was really interested in him, not really interested in him. No one ever actually brings up the fact that Gloria gets hit on all the time. And Gloria actively lets it happen and gets jealous of Claire if the attention goes on Claire, which it did in this episode. And Claire lies to her husband about this. She's like, yeah, no, I'm going to like yoga or whatever, but she's not saying, oh yeah, the yoga instructor's kind of like hitting on me, because A, she would never do anything about it. But B, it's not that huge of a situation. She's in a yoga class. She's finally more appealing to everyone than Gloria for once in her life, because even her own husband would rather have Gloria instead of her, and he makes that very clear over and over and over again, and people have to remind him, including his college nemesis, how hot Claire is for Phil to pay attention to his wife for 30 seconds at a time without shaming her for getting old. So Claire hits on this yoga instructor. Well, actually, she's not hitting on him. She starts letting him hit on her. And in that same episode, when people like to bring that up to me, Phil is actively lying to his wife about a client that he has who is a hot black woman. Because if Phil likes one thing and has a fetish for one thing in this world, it's hot black woman, which is weird in and of itself. Not weird being attracted to black women, obviously, but the way that he fetishizes them is odd. But sure, bring up the 2 times that Claire mildly strays. Sure. Thanks. Bye.